The whispers of war. First Contact Officer Thexis watched the peculiar blue-green planet through the observation deck of the Axani flagship Eternal Dominion. Her crystalline exoskeleton refracted the starlight as she contemplated the strange energy readings that had brought the collective's attention to this unremarkable solar system. "Most unusual," she murmured, her secondary voice chambers creating harmonics that expressed confusion. The energy signature suggests quantum manipulation far beyond Level 7 civilization capabilities, yet their visible infrastructure is barely Level 3. Behind her, Fleet Commander Rixel clicked his mandibles in irritation. The commander's battle-scarred carapace bore the distinctive purple markings of a veteran of the collective's expansion campaigns. "Your analysis, First Contact Officer. They're either remarkably incompetent with their advanced technology," Thexis said, her crystalline fingers dancing over the holographic display, "or they're hiding something." The humans' response to their arrival had been puzzling from the start. No panic, no awe, not even the expected diplomatic scrambling that usually accompanied first contact scenarios. Instead, they had received a simple message: "Welcome to Sol System. Please maintain your current orbit. A representative will contact you shortly." The casualness of it had irritated Rixel immensely. The collective was used to inspiring fear or reverence, not being treated like common cargo haulers awaiting docking instructions. "Show me their orbital infrastructure again," Rixel commanded. A holographic display shifted, showing a sparse network of satellites and space stations. Most appeared to be simple communications relays or scientific instruments. Their space vessels were crude by collective standards. Chemical propulsion, minimal shielding, no sign of quantum drive technology. Their defenses seemed negligible, Rixel noted. A single destroyer called. "Sir," Thexis interrupted, her crystalline form pulsing with warning colors. "I would advise against such thoughts. The energy signatures we detected, they don't match anything in our database. And there's something else." She manipulated the display, highlighting a series of readings. "They're communication satellites. They're using technologies we abandoned centuries ago, but they're achieving efficiency levels we never managed with those same technologies. It's as if what, First Contact Officer? As if they're choosing to use primitive technology, but have mastered it to degrees we never considered possible." The bridge's atmosphere grew tense as a new message arrived from Earth. "Greetings, Axoni Collective Vessel. This is Dr. Sarah Chen of the Earth Diplomatic Corps. I'm preparing to dock with your ship. Please be advised that I will be arriving in approximately 5 minutes." Rexel's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of agitation. "Doc, we haven't extended our docking protocols. We haven't even." He fell silent as the sensors detected a small vessel approaching. It looked absurdly simple, barely more than a cylinder with maneuvering thrusters. Scanning the approaching vessel, the sensor officer reported, their bioluminescent patches pulsing with confusion. "Sir, it appears to be using only chemical propulsion and basic inertial dampeners, but the efficiency readings are impossible. They're getting more thrust from their primitive rockets than our quantum drives produce." The human vessel approached with impossible precision, matching their velocity and position perfectly despite its apparent technological limitations. As it drew closer, Thexis's scientific curiosity overcame her diplomatic restraint. "How?" she whispered. "How are they achieving such results with outdated technology?" The answer came in Dr. Chen's next transmission, though it only deepened the mystery. "We find that mastering the basics often reveals possibilities others miss in their rush to advance. Don't you agree?" As the human ship initiated docking procedures without any input from the collective vessel's systems, Thexis felt her crystalline form vibrate with an emotion she hadn't experienced in centuries. Fear, not of attack or violence, but of something far more unsettling. The realization that everything the collective thought they knew about technological progression might be wrong. The docking procedure completed with perfect precision. Dr. Chen's final message before boarding sent ripples of unease through the collective crew. I look forward to discussing your interest in our quantum manipulation signatures. Though I should warn you, the answers might challenge your assumptions about the nature of progress itself. Rixel turned to Thexus, his mandibles tight with tension. First Contact Officer, what exactly have we discovered here? Thexus watched as the airlock cycled, preparing to admit their human guest. Her crystalline form shifted through patterns that hadn't been seen in Axoni diplomatic corps for generations, the colors of profound uncertainty. I believe, Commander, she said carefully, we've discovered that we may not be as advanced as we thought. And more importantly, she paused as the airlock door began to open. I believe we've discovered why no other advanced civilizations have ever attempted to conquer this system. The door opened fully, revealing Dr. Sarah Chen, a surprisingly unassuming figure in a simple white suit. She smiled warmly, but there was something in her eyes that made even Rixel step back slightly. It was the look of someone who had seen far more of the universe's secrets than their apparent technological level should allow. Welcome to Earth space, she said pleasantly. We have so much to discuss about your recent quantum scanning of our sphere of influence. But first, I believe we should address the rather impressive battle fleet you have hiding behind your moon. It seems we have a few misconceptions to clear up about humanity's place in the galactic community. The first strike. The Axoni battle cruiser Inevitable Victory dropped out of quantum space near Europa, Jupiter's ice-covered moon. Strike Commander Kexel watched the small human research station floating serenely above the moon's surface. According to their intelligence, it was one of humanity's most remote outposts, the perfect target for a swift demonstration of collective power. The diplomatic meeting with Dr. Chen had gone poorly. The humans' calm assertions about mutual respect and technological harmony had infuriated the collective's high command. They had built their empire on technological superiority. The idea that a seemingly primitive species might be choosing to use outdated technology was an insult they couldn't tolerate. Battle stations, Kexel ordered, his carapace gleaming with anticipation. Let's show these humans what real advanced technology looks like. The research station was small, barely larger than a collective scout ship. Its only obvious features were a series of antiquated solar panels and a simple radio array. No weapons, no shields, not even basic defensive screens. This would be over quickly. Sir, his sensor officer reported, the station is transmitting. A calm voice filled the bridge. Axoni vessel, this is Europa Research Station. You are approaching restricted space. Your recent diplomatic exchanges with Earth indicate you may be contemplating hostile action. This would be unwise. Please adjust your course. Kexel's mandibles clicked in amusement. Send no response. Launch primary strike group. 5 destroyer-class ships peeled away from the battle cruiser, their quantum drives humming with power. They carried enough firepower to reduce a small moon to rubble. The research station remained motionless, its outdated solar panels still placidly collecting Jupiter's dim sunlight. Sir, the sensor officer's voice wavered slightly. I'm detecting some unusual readings from the station's direction. Specify. I can't. The readings don't match anything in our database. It's as if, sir, the space around the station is becoming strange. Kexel leaned forward, watching as his destroyers approached their target. The ships were nearly in firing range when he noticed it. The stars behind the station seemed to be moving. No, not moving. Bending. The station transmitted again. This is your final warning. The laws of physics in this region are about to become rather inconvenient for your vessels. Last chance to withdraw. Open fire, Kexel commanded, his voice carrying harmonics of uncertainty for the first time. The destroyers launched their attacks simultaneously. Quantum torpedoes, plasma beams, and graviton pulses streaming toward the seemingly defenseless station. Kexel watched with satisfaction as the barrage approached, and then simply stopped. Not exploded, not deflected. Stopped. The energy weapons hung in space like frozen lightning, the torpedoes suspended as if trapped in invisible amber. Fascinating weapons, the station transmitted. Such a shame to waste them. There was a pause. Then, here, let us show you something interesting. The suspended weapons began to move again, but not toward their intended target. They started orbiting the station like electrons around an atomic nucleus, gaining speed with each revolution. The destroyers attempted to retreat, but their quantum drives failed to respond. You see, the station continued conversationally. We learned long ago that the most advanced technology isn't about forcing the universe to do what you want. It's about asking nicely. The space around the station rippled like heat waves over desert sand. The orbiting weapons suddenly changed color, their energy signatures transforming into something entirely new. With a flash of light that seemed to bend in impossible ways, they vanished. We've transmitted the complete scientific analysis of your weapons to your ship's computers, the station announced. You'll find our notes on potential efficiency improvements particularly interesting. Your quantum drive technology, for instance, could be at least 60% more efficient if you'd simply asked the quantum particles for cooperation rather than forcing them into compliance. Kexel stared in horror as his sensor screens filled with data, detailed breakdowns of every weapon they'd fired, along with annotations and suggestions for improvements. The level of analysis suggested the humans had not only stopped their attacks, but had completely disassembled and studied them in the seconds they'd hung suspended in space. How? Kexel's voice failed him. How did you? Research station, his second-in-command interrupted. We're detecting energy buildup from. The space around them shimmered, and suddenly the inevitable Victory and its destroyer escort were no longer near Europa. They hung in space near Pluto, billions of kilometers from their target. We've taken the liberty of relocating you to a safe distance, the station transmitted. Please find attached our full analysis of your quantum drive systems. Your solution for faster-than-light travel is quite clever, but unnecessarily complex. We achieved similar results centuries ago using modified sailing ships and a very polite request to the fabric of space-time. Kexel's mandibles hung slack as he processed the impossible. His mighty battle fleet had been casually displaced across the solar system by a research station using technology his sensors still insisted was primitive. One final note, the station added. We've temporarily adjusted your quantum drives to prevent return to this region. Don't worry. The effect will wear off in approximately one standard Earth week. We suggest using this time to review our technical analysis. Pay particular attention to Section 47, regarding the consciousness of subatomic particles. It should prove quite enlightening. As his crew frantically tried to restore their systems, Kexel received one last transmission, this time marked as personal. Strike Commander, Dr. Chen asked us to remind you. She did try to warn you about misconceptions. Perhaps next time, we can discuss cultural exchange rather than military superiority. Earth's quantum physics professors would love to chat about your approach to particle acceleration. They find it charmingly direct. For the first time in his military career, Strike Commander Kexel felt true fear. Not of destruction or defeat, but of something far more terrifying. The realization that everything his civilization had achieved might be nothing more than a child's clumsy first steps into a universe far stranger and more wonderful than they had ever imagined. The Awakening. The grand archive of the Axoni Collective was unusually crowded. Crystalline forms of various ranks and specialties huddled around display terminals, their exoskeletons shifting through patterns of distress and disbelief as they reviewed the data from the Europa incident. First Contact Officer Thexis stood before the High Council, her form pulsing with the deep blue of urgent warning. The chamber's organic architecture, usually soothing in its complexity, seemed to amplify the tension in the room. Counselors, she began, what we've discovered about humanity goes far beyond the Europa incident. We've been blind, willfully, catastrophically blind. The head counselor, Ancient One Vexus, leaned forward, their ancient crystalline form casting prismatic patterns across the chamber. Explain. Vexus gestured, and the chamber's holographic systems came to life. These are human patents from their public databases spanning the last 300 years. Thousands of technical documents filled the air around them. We dismissed them because they seemed primitive, focused on simple mechanical and chemical processes. We were wrong. She highlighted one patent, expanding it. This is a human patent for what they call a steam engine from their 19th century. Look at the mathematical annotations in the margins. The document rotated, revealing complex equations that definitely didn't belong in a primitive mechanical patent. These aren't engineering notes, Thexis continued. They're quantum field calculations, disguised as simple mechanical formulas. The humans weren't just building steam engines, they were experimenting with space-time manipulation, using steam as a cover. The council chamber erupted in harmonic discord as dozens of voices spoke at once. Thexis pushed forward, and it gets worse, or better, depending on your perspective. She brought up another document. This is what they called a radio, supposedly a simple device for transmitting signals through electromagnetic waves. But look at the substrate design. She highlighted a section of the schematics. They weren't just transmitting signals, they were communicating with the quantum substrate of reality itself. Ancient One Vex's crystalline form darkened with concern. How long? Based on our analysis, they've had technology surpassing our current level for at least 400 years. While we were proud of forcing our way into space, they were having pleasant conversations with it. The chamber's lighting shifted as Thexis brought up her final piece of evidence. This is from their early space program. Note how they reached their moon using chemical rockets and primitive computers. The footage played, showing grainy images of human Apollo missions. Now, watch this. She overlaid the footage with quantum analysis. The simple rockets glowed with impossible complexity, their crude chemical engines surrounded by subtle distortions in reality itself. They weren't just flying to their moon, Thexis explained. They were teaching humanity an object lesson about doing things the hard way first. Every primitive step in their technological development was deliberately chosen, not for efficiency, but for understanding. A younger council member spoke up, their voice carrying harmonics of confusion. But why? Why pretend to be primitive when they had such power? Thexis's form shifted to the deep green of revelation. Because they were watching us. All of us. Every spacefaring race that achieved quantum technology did so through force and dominance. We bent reality to our will, forced particles to obey our commands. Humanity. They took a different path. She brought up one final document. A children's science textbook from Earth. Look at how they teach their young about quantum mechanics. They don't talk about mastery or control. They teach respect, understanding. They treat the fundamental forces of reality as partners, not tools. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. The Axoni Collective, like every other advanced civilization they'd encountered, had achieved their power through technological domination. Humanity had achieved something far greater through cooperation with the universe itself. There's more, Thexis continued, her voice softening. We've detected similar patterns in their development of artificial intelligence, genetic engineering, even their early internet. Every time they made a breakthrough, they deliberately slowed down, taking centuries to explore all possibilities, all consequences. She faced the council directly. The Europa incident wasn't a demonstration of superior technology. It was a gentle reminder that we've been going about everything wrong. They don't build weapons. They convince space itself to politely relocate threats. They don't force quantum particles to carry their messages. They ask them to help spread their words across the galaxy. Ancient One Vexis rose, their crystalline form resonating with decision harmonics. And now they're revealing themselves. Why? Because, Vexis replied, according to Dr. Chen's last message, they believe we're finally ready to learn. Not to learn their technology, but to learn their patience, their respect for the universe itself. The council chamber's organic architecture seemed to pulse with the weight of the moment. The Axoni Collective, one of the most powerful civilizations in known space, had just discovered they were like children playing with forces they barely understood. And humanity, the supposedly primitive species they'd planned to conquer, had been quietly waiting for them to grow up enough to realize it. "There's one more thing," Thexis added, her form shifting to colors rarely seen in Axoni communication. Dr. Chen sent a personal message to the council. She said they're willing to teach us. Not their technology, but their perspective, their way of asking rather than taking. The chamber erupted in a cascade of colors as the council members processed this offer. The implications were staggering. Centuries of Axoni developments suddenly revealed as crude first steps towards something far greater. The response. The Axoni flagship Eternal Dominion hung motionless in space, surrounded by the largest battle fleet ever assembled in the collective's history. 5,000 ships gathered for what was supposed to be the final conquest of Earth. Now they waited, weapons powered down, as a single human vessel approached. Fleet Commander Rixel watched the approaching ship with a mix of dread and fascination. Unlike the seemingly primitive vessel Dr. Chen had arrived in during first contact, this one made no pretense of technological simplicity. It was beautiful in a way that defied conventional physics, a crystalline structure that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. "Sir," his sensor officer reported, "we're receiving a transmission. It's Dr. Chen again." The human's image appeared on the bridge's main display. She looked exactly as she had during their first meeting, still wearing that simple white suit. But now, seeing her with new understanding, Rixel noticed subtle details he'd missed before. The way light bent slightly around her, how her image seemed to carry more information than should be possible in a standard transmission. "Fleet Commander," she greeted him warmly. "I believe it's time for your first lesson." Before Rixel could respond, every screen on every ship in the fleet began displaying complex mathematical formulae. "These are your current weapons systems operating principles," Chen explained. "And this," new equations appeared alongside the originals, "is how they could work if you ask nicely." Across the fleet, weapons systems began to transform. Not through external force or hacking, but through what seemed like voluntary reconfiguration at the quantum level. Rixel watched in amazement as his ship's main quantum cannon dismantled and reassembled itself into something both simpler and infinitely more sophisticated. "We're not destroying your weapons," Chen explained. "We're showing them a better way to exist, much like we're about to show you." The space around the fleet rippled. Suddenly, they were no longer in Earth orbit, but spread across a vast stellar nursery, watching stars being born. The view was impossible. They were simultaneously seeing the macro scale of stellar formation and the quantum dance of particles coming together to form new matter. "This is how we see the universe," Chen said softly, "not as something to be conquered, but as a dance to join. Watch." The human ship approached a forming star, and instead of the expected scientific analysis, Rixel heard music. No, not music. Mathematics expressed as sound, physics transformed into harmony. The stellar matter responded, its natural processes accelerating in response to the song. "Your civilization built quantum computers by forcing particles to compute," Chen continued. "We asked them if they would like to help us think. You developed faster than light travel by tearing holes in space-time. We learned to knock politely and ask space to let us through." The demonstration continued for hours. Each lesson was a revelation, showing how every aggressive technological solution the Axoni had developed could be replaced with something far more elegant through cooperation with natural forces rather than dominion over them. Rixel watched as his mighty weapons transformed into tools of creation. The change wasn't forced. Rather, it was as if the technology itself was eagerly embracing a better way of being. His quantum torpedoes became devices for communicating with stellar phenomena. His graviton projectors reformed into instruments that could conduct the symphony of space-time itself. "But why show us this?" Rixel finally asked. "Why not simply defeat us?" Chen's smile carried genuine warmth. Because that's not who we are. Humanity learned long ago that victory through force just creates future enemies. Victory through understanding creates future friends. She gestured, and the fleet returned to Earth orbit. But something was different. The planet below them was no longer obscured by its seemingly primitive shell. Now they could see it as it truly was, a world wrapped in layers of subtle technology so advanced it was nearly indistinguishable from natural phenomena. Earth isn't defended by weapons, Chen explained. It's protected by the willing cooperation of reality itself. We didn't build planetary shields. We asked space to kindly consider deflecting anything harmful. We don't maintain a battle fleet. We have friends among the fundamental forces of the universe. The demonstration concluded with one final revelation. Every ship in the Axoni fleet received a comprehensive database, not of human technology, but of human philosophy. Centuries of accumulated wisdom about the importance of understanding rather than controlling, of asking rather than taking. Your weapons remain functional, Chen assured them. But they've learned there are better ways to exist, just as we hope you have. The database we shared contains no technological secrets, those you'll need to discover for yourself. But it will show you how to ask the right questions, how to listen to the universe's answers. Reichsel's crystalline form shifted through colors that had no name in Axoni language as he realized the truth. Humanity hadn't just surpassed the collective technologically. They transcended the very concept of technological advancement as his people understood it. The lesson is over for today, Chen concluded. You may stay and learn more, or you may leave with what we've shown you. The choice, as always, is yours. But know this, every particle of matter, every force of nature, every quantum of energy you encounter from now on knows there's a better way. They're all waiting to see if you'll learn to ask rather than demand. The understanding. The grand archive of the Axoni collective had changed. Where once crystalline beings hurried through its halls seeking technological knowledge, now they moved with deliberate grace, their forms resonating with new understanding. A year had passed since the encounter with humanity, and nothing in the galaxy remained quite the same. First Contact Officer Thexis stood in the archive's central chamber, now transformed into what humans would call a classroom. Around her, representatives from 100 species gathered, former enemies and cautious allies alike, all drawn by the stories of what had happened to the Axoni fleet. The humans call this a kindergarten, she explained, her crystalline form shifting through teaching harmonics, a place where the young learn fundamental truths. We, in our pride, thought ourselves beyond such basics. We were wrong. The chamber's walls displayed scenes from the past year's transformations. The Axoni's quantum drives, once brutal tears through space-time, now created gentle ripples in reality's fabric. Their weapons had evolved into tools of understanding, not through human intervention, but through their own awakened consciousness. Humanity's greatest gift wasn't their technology, Thexis continued. It was the revelation that we had been asking the wrong questions. We sought to understand how the universe works. They sought to understand why it might want to work with us. A delegation of Mirith, longtime rivals of the Axoni, raised their tentacles in the gesture of deep questioning. But surely they must have defenses, true weapons hidden away. No civilization can survive on trust alone. Thexis's form resonated with newly learned humor. They do have defenses, but not as we understood them. Humanity's greatest defense is that they made friends with the fundamental forces of reality itself. How do you attack a species that has convinced entropy to politely look the other way? She brought up footage from recent diplomatic exchanges. Human ships, no longer hiding their true nature, danced through space in ways that redefined possibility. Not through technological superiority, but through perfect harmony with natural law. They've opened schools, not embassies, Thexis explained. They don't teach us their technology. They show us how to learn from the universe directly. Each civilization is encouraged to find its own path, ask its own questions. The chamber filled with images from across known space. The warlike Kraith, who had terrified younger races with their plasma cannons, now used their technology to shepherd stellar nurseries. The Xinthi, once isolated in their crystal spheres, had learned to communicate with the quantum foam of space itself. Some call it a revolution, Thexis continued, but the humans have a different word for it. They call it growing up. She gestured, and the chamber's display shifted to Earth. The planet no longer bothered with its pretense of primitive technology. Its true nature was visible now. A world where technology and natural law had achieved perfect synthesis. They waited centuries for us to notice what they had discovered, she explained. That the universe isn't a resource to be exploited or a force to be conquered. It's a partner in the dance of existence. Every quantum particle, every force of nature, every ripple in space-time has its own kind of consciousness. All we had to do was learn to listen. Ancient One Vexus, who had joined the teaching session, raised their crystalline form in the pattern of deep revelation. And what of the future? What happens when we master these lessons? Vexus's form shifted to colors of joy. The humans say we've barely begun. Their children learn things about reality that our greatest scientists never imagined. Not through advanced technology, but through asking simple questions with profound respect. The chamber filled with one final image, a human child in what they called a playground, laughing as gravity itself seemed to join in their game. This is what they wanted us to understand, Thexis said softly. True advancement isn't about power. It's about wonder. She faced her diverse audience, her form radiating the deep wisdom that had transformed her people. The humans never needed to defend Earth. The universe itself had chosen to protect them, not through fear or dominance, but through friendship. They didn't conquer nature. They joined its dance. The gathering absorbed this in thoughtful silence. The Axoni collective, once proud conquerors, had become students again. And they weren't alone. Across the galaxy, civilizations were learning to see the universe with new eyes. There's one more thing, Thexis added, her form pulsing with newfound hope. Dr. Chen told me that humanity's greatest discovery still awaits sharing. When asked what it was, she simply smiled and said, "When you're ready, the universe itself will tell you. All you have to do is learn to listen." As the session ended, the gathered species departed not as rivals or allies, but as fellow students in a universe far more wondrous than they had imagined. The silent stars, they had learned, were never truly silent. They had been speaking all along, waiting for someone to finally ask them what they had to say.